The Victorian Alps, known to us as the Victorian High Country, is a picturesque and rugged sweeping mountain range located in the Australian state of Victoria. There's over 5,200 square kilometres or about 2,000 square miles of sharp cliffs and flowing rivers, dense forest and snow. So it's easy to see why 2.7 million visitors come to the area each year. But just beneath the surface, criminals carry out their activities. Illegal deer shooters and drug growers have been uncovered in recent times, and as terrifying as that is, something far more sinister might also be happening. While there have been previous cases relating to this, the people in this video vanished quite recently in the Victorian Alps, without a trace, and all within a 60k radius of one another between 2008 and 2020. Conrad Whitlock. On July 29, 2019, 72-year-old Conrad Whitlock left his Melbourne home in the early hours of the morning. Conrad was a wealthy businessman and race car driver. He planned to leave early in the morning to get some tests done. According to his BMW's E-tag, Conrad was driving on the Maroondah Highway around 3 AM and headed towards Mount Buller. At 6 AM, Conrad drove through the entrance gate to the Mount Buller resort and was seen behind the wheel of his car by other drivers. But by 8 AM, his car was found abandoned by the side of the road at the base of Mount Buller, with his phone, jacket and keys still inside the car. Conrad's wife Mandy called authorities to investigate after she hadn't heard from him in some time. She managed to track his phone to confirm his location, and when authorities arrived, they confirmed her worst fears. Something had happened to Conrad. Police, forestry workers, Mount Buller search and rescue specialists, the air wing and the dog squad searched for Conrad over the next 6 days, battling with the tough conditions with the temperature falling to -3 degrees Celsius overnight. Unfortunately, Conrad couldn't be found. Mandy can't explain why he would stop, stating that it was like he stopped suddenly. If he intended to park, he would park properly. Just 1 metre up the road there was a proper stop. It just seemed strange. According to local stockman Bruce McCormack, he was driving through the area and noticed the car abandoned about 8 AM. As he returned past the area an hour later, he recalled seeing someone looking like Conrad stumbling across the road. Bruce reported the encounter to police, but apparently the outfit he described the man wearing didn't match what Conrad was last seen in. About 10 days earlier, Conrad had suffered a severe car crash. As a result, he'd been experiencing head pains and amnesia prior to his disappearance and was on some strong painkillers. Unfortunately, Conrad has never been found. One possible theory is that Conrad was disoriented by the strong painkillers and likely fell or slipped down the steep ridge after getting out of his car. But despite this theory, the location of which Conrad disappeared is a known hotspot for others to go missing, which, without a body or any clues, along with Mandy's statement that where Conrad's car was out of character, foul play can't be ruled out. This case remains unsolved. Warren Meyer. 57-year-old Warren Meyer hasn't been seen since he set off on a 10k bushwalk from the Dom Dom Saddle picnic area in Fernshaw, Victoria on March 23, 2008. He's regarded as an experienced hiker and had packed a whistle, matches, paper maps, a mobile phone, GPS, food and water on his bushwalk before disappearing. Police and volunteers have searched across the region in the days after his disappearance, but Warren or any clues leading to his disappearance has not been found. However, some suspicious incidents in the vicinity of Warren's walking track on that Easter Sunday, including an escaped psychiatric patient and unusual gunfire, give rise to the possibility that his disappearance wasn't an accident. Craig McDermott was on a nearby property that day when he heard multiple shooters unloading their guns, reporting hundreds of shots, but then stopped suddenly. Craig later went to investigate the area and found a burnt out campsite and empty beer cans, but surprisingly found no bullet shells. Warren's phone made its final ping to a cell tower in the location of where Craig heard the gunfire. This was the last time his phone had ever sent a ping. Bizarrely, none of his items had been found. A psychiatric patient, Anthony Williams, had escaped in a facility and was known to be in the area at the same time as Warren. He was confirmed of having homicidal tendencies. Anthony was quickly eliminated as a suspect by police because they believed there was only a 1-hour window of time which they could have crossed paths, but detectives later determined it was actually a 2-hour time frame during which the pair could have met. Unfortunately, Anthony later died in 2009. Warren's family continued to search the area, retracing the steps he was assumed to have taken to find any clues, and it was on one of those searches that they discovered an illegal commercial marijuana plantation. Police suspect something sinister had taken place, concluding that if Warren had been accidentally hit, he would have been discovered during the initial searches. Like the first case, this incident happened in the infamous hotspot and remains unsolved. Niels Becker. 39-year-old Niels Becker embarked on a solo 5-day trek through the Alps on October 24, 2019 as a birthday present to himself. He departed from Upper Jamison Hut and let his family know that he was headed back to his car via Mount Sterling on October 29th. Neil was an experienced hiker and was always well prepared, although he didn't have a GPS locator on him. At this time of year, the Alps experience heavy rain and snowfall, but according to experts, it's possible for an experienced hiker or a camper to survive weeks in the wilderness in those conditions. On top of this, Niels was regarded as very fit and had been training for a long time. When he wasn't found by November 12th, experts believed it was likely that Niels would have died of hypothermia because of the weather. Detectives noted that the circumstances of Niels were frighteningly similar to Warren Meyer's disappearance. Like Warren, he was experienced and prepared, and again, disappears off the face of the earth. Niels' body or any traces of his belongings had never been found. While it's easy to blame disappearances on the wilderness, the details in this case don't add up, and in addition to the details, the location of which Niels disappeared is nearby to where Conrad and Warren were last seen. At the time of this video, the case remains unsolved. David Prado. On June 5th, 2011, 50-year-old David Prado disappeared on a hunting trip in Victoria's Alpine National Park. David was governor of Barwon Prison. He was last seen at the Buckland Spur Track near Mansfield. David was an avid outdoorsman and spent a lot of time in the Alps hunting, camping and hiking. He was regarded by friends as well prepared with a GPS device, UHF radio and rifle. Despite a full-scale search of the area, David's body and any of his belongings have never been found. Because of David's position as governor, authorities regarded his disappearance as highly suspicious. Prison is full of very angry people, and prison officers are unfortunately very unpopular. In addition to this, despite being in the wilderness, David was well prepared and would have summoned for help if he ran into trouble. He had a rifle with him which he could have fired to get attention. Again, like the other cases in this video so far, the area where David was last seen alive was nearby the other disappearances. This case remains unsolved. Kelvin Tennan. On February 18th, 2017, 72-year-old retiree Kelvin Tennan was cycling along the Myrtleford-Everton rail trail when he slowed down to go around a car where it joined to Great Alpine Road. A dark-coloured sedan car had parked across the trail, which Kelvin didn't find alarming at the time. As Kelvin got closer to the car, a man got out of the driver's side, walked around to the back to the boot, and pulled out a pistol. The man opened fire on Kelvin, unloading the entire clip, with 3 of the bullets hitting Kelvin, one into the right side of his head, another to the left side of his face, and the third into his chest, right below his heart. The shooter then jumped back into the car and sped away. Kelvin was found a little while later by 2 other cyclists who were riding the same trail. He was on the ground unconscious, but thanks to these cyclists, emergency services airlifted him to a nearby hospital. A lot of traffic passes this part of the Grey Alpine Road where Kelvin was shot. A large number of vehicles would have passed the Begoygie Creek rest area at the time of the shooting, which is midway between Everton and Myrtleford, so for something like this to happen is truly disturbing. This case remains unsolved as the shooter has never been identified, but it's Kelvin's story that confirmed what many feared the most to the others who have gone missing, that their disappearances may have been a result of something truly sinister. Russell Hill and Carol Clay. 74-year-old Russell Hill and 73-year-old Carol Clay were reported missing by their respective families after they didn't return home. Russell and Carol had rekindled a childhood relationship which Russell was keeping secret from his wife of 51 years, Robin. Russell and Carol had planned a secret camping trip at Wonnangatta Valley, an area which Russell was quite familiar with, having worked in the area as a logging contractor before retiring. Carol was a single mother of 3 and described as leading a selfless life, supporting charities and being heavily involved in the Country Women's Association. On March 19th, Russell picked up Carol and the two headed to Wonnangatta Valley, telling their families that they were going camping alone. They arrived and set up camp by the Wonnangatta River. The next day, Russell made a call over the CB radio to a friend, as mobile service is scarce in the area. This was the last time Russell was heard alive by anyone, ever again. Russell and Carol's families both made missing persons reports when they still hadn't come back home. 7 days later, another camper stumbled across the pair's burnt-out campsite and took a photo before contacting police. On March 28th, police arrived in the area and found Russell's Toyota Ute, still locked. Police and search volunteers combed the area and surrounding bushland, but were yet to find them. Interestingly enough, Russell took his drone along, and this wasn't found at the campsite or in Russell's ute. By this point, rumours started swirling around about a mysterious loner called Button Man, who had been a popular campfire tale of how he was responsible for the disappearances of others in the Alps. While working other leads, police managed to track down the man known as Button Man, a 74-year-old man who had formerly lived in Reservoir, but now lived in the Alps and carved buttons out of deer antlers. He was questioned by police in April of 2020, but cleared of any involvement in the disappearance of Russell and Carol. Meanwhile, detectives received cell tower logs and found that Russell's mobile had pinged a tower in the area of Mount Hotham on March 21st, 2 days after they were last seen alive. Narrowing down the search area, police used footage from traffic cameras and determined 12 vehicles travelling nearby, so searched each one of them systematically, eliminating each from the list. But it was the last car in their list that gave detectives the break they needed. The last car in their search was a dark blue 1997 Nissan Patrol belonging to a Gregory Lynn. By the time they had reached this part of their search, it was July. When police visited Gregory's home, they noticed that the Nissan Patrol had recently been painted beige. Using services such as Google Street View, the Nissan Patrol was parked in the same spot in the driveway and was dark blue. Police were confident that they had their man, so were given a court order to plant listening devices in Gregory's home after he became the primary suspect. Many months had passed and Russell and Carol faded into obscurity, so by October 2021, police started ramping up their appeal to the public for more information about the couple's disappearance, as well as their search for a dark blue Nissan Patrol. The appeal to the community wasn't necessarily to find more information from the public, but to try and catch Gregory. And by November 2021, a month later, police finally received a breakthrough. Shortly after the public information appeals, the listening devices planted in Gregory's home captured Gregory planning to take his own life. In a snap decision, the police arrested Gregory. When Gregory was then taken in for questioning, he was found guilty of the murders of Russell Hill and Carol Clay. According to Gregory, he became annoyed at Russell after Russell had flown his drone over his campsite. He confronted Russell and Carol about it, then returned to his camp. Then, Russell and Carol allegedly followed Gregory back to his campsite. The two got into an argument. Russell noticed Gregory's gun nearby, grabbed it, and the two got into struggle for control over it. It was during this scuffle that the gun had accidentally fired and fatally shot Carol. As the fight progressed, Gregory stabbed Russell to death. Gregory released the approximate whereabouts of Russell and Carol's bodies, which led police to find their remains on the Providence Spur Track. In May 2020 and November 2020, Gregory had returned to the bodies of Raymond and Carol, where he tried to dispose of them further, such as burning them, dispersing them, and partially interring them. There's no suggestion that Gregory Lynn is involved in the other disappearances in this video, but while this case is now resolved, the incident happened close by to the other disappearances. The hotspot has been dubbed Australia's Bermuda Triangle. Up until the murders of Russell Hill and Carol Clay, the people in this video entered the 60-kilometre hotspot in the Victorian Alps and vanished without a trace. Could this spot be a psychopath or psychopath's killing playground? The details of these disappearances are certainly chilling. Gunshots have been heard where people were last known to be. A confirmed escaped psychiatric patient was known to be in the area during one of the disappearances, as well as all the other previous criminal activities in the Alps as well. And in Kelvin Tennan's case, somebody lay in wait in plain sight on a busy highway and shot him point blank with the intent to kill, regardless of the motive. And to top it all off, the tales of Button Man, an urban legend apparently he was only meant to be a campfire tale, turned out to be a real living man in the wilderness, living within the 60k hotspot where he hunted deer. I'll leave it up to you to decide what you think may have happened, but my only advice is to stay out of the hotspot.